So picture this. I remember the day I got the phone call. I'm outside, I'm walking my dog. I'm actually in the middle of picking up the dog. But I get the phone call and I'm told, you've got 2.5 weeks to get your affairs in order, to pack your bags before we fly you out to Mallorca. And at that moment in time, I thought, this has got to be a prank, right? There is no way that out of 250,000 applicants, somehow I've made it through. After that second of disbelief and I was told this is actually not a prank, I fired off the "this is not a drill" text to the girls' group chat. Then came that wave of excitement, the feeling that I'm going to get this life-changing opportunity that so many people dream of, and it was finally becoming a reality. Well, raise your hand if you or someone you know has ever been spiked. Now, when you look around at the room, the number is concerning. Spiking is a deliberate act where you drug somebody's drink or body without their knowledge or consent. It often incapacitates them for the purposes of sexual assault, robbery, or harm. It's a premeditated violation, a crime designed to strip a person of their autonomy, their safety, and in many cases, their ability to fight back. Now, that happened to me. And my experience is an experience shared by many. I felt dizzy, confused. I lost control of my body. And at a lot of the points, it felt like it wasn't even mine. When I regained consciousness in A&E, I had no memory, no possessions, just fragments of the day that I could remember and trying to piece them together. And on reflection, I always deem myself a lucky survivor. Isn't that a really horrible way to label it? Lucky. I was lucky to not be assaulted, when I know that is exactly what my perpetrator wanted to do to me. But I know that so many other women are not as fortunate. And when I discuss the backlash that I face about speaking up about my experience, it's something that I had hoped would never happen, because I'd hoped that society's tendency to question the victim instead of the perpetrator would have moved on. Instead of asking, what was I wearing? What was I drinking? Who was I with? Nobody ever asked me, why did he feel like he had the right to violate me? Now, I remember sitting in cast holding for 2 very long weeks, by the way, with my chaperone. And we had a conversation about what I wanted to achieve post-Villa. And I'd bought into that narrative that we're all sold about how success is fame, wealth, and plethoras of followers. And it always feels like Love Island is going to be that golden ticket. Now, with fame comes scrutiny. All the women sat in this room will know exactly that women face a different level of scrutiny. But when you include reality TV into that, you're judged very differently. You're asked to be confident, but not intimidating. You need to be likable, but not try too hard. And you need to be deemed attractive, but not too sexy. And the constant pressure of trying to please everyone becomes too much for a single person. Now, I remember the sensationalized headlines, not being able to go out and be pictured with a man without him being a love interest, holiday photos turned into some weird freak show, and reading articles about myself with misconstrued quotes to the point where I didn't even recognize the person they're describing. Speaking out about spiking was meant to be me breaking free from stereotypes, where women like me that join reality TV shows, that enjoy makeup and the beauty industry, that like to dress up and enjoy fashion, that the stereotype that we lack substance, when that is not true. I, like many women, have a story. I, like many women, have ambition. And I also have the passion to make a real change. Now, isn't it really weird how 3 weeks on reality TV felt like it defined my entire life, overshadowing 29 other years that surrounded it? But what was my experience of being spiked and the response that I had to it that truly changed everything for me. The disbelief, the victim blaming, the way that my story was twisted, it all ignited something in me, and I knew that what it felt like to be dismissed. And I realized how many other women must have gone through the same thing. So now my fight was no longer about me, but it was about all women. Activism, charity work, isn't something that's new to me, I'll admit. I've been involved in a plethora of different ways for many years, but this time it was different. It wasn't just something that I took part in because I felt like I had to. It became a driving force and the reason I woke up every single morning. I was blessed with this platform and I was determined to make a real difference with it. Now, I reached out to experts, campaigners, I spoke to survivors. I was determined to learn everything I could about gender-based violence, the systemic failures that allow it to persist. I studied the policies that failed us, the gaps in the injustice system that meant spiking was rarely prosecuted, the inconsistency in police responses to reports of assault. I examined loopholes that let perpetrators walk free, from the low conviction rates for rape to the minimal sentences for domestic abuse. I explored how funding cuts to women's refuges left survivors with nowhere to turn and how online spaces became a breeding ground for misogyny with little regulation, and how the education system failed to teach young people about consent and healthy relationships. But more than anything, I saw how ingrained societal attitudes kept women in this cycle of blame and silence, how victim-blaming narratives shaped the way that cases were handled, how public figures who spoke out were met with scrutiny rather than with support, and how time and time again the burden of change was placed upon women rather than the men that committed these crimes. So with this network that I'd built, the visibility I gained, I began campaigning relentlessly. When I'm meeting with MPs, I pushed for better protections against spiking, and when I spoke in Parliament, I tried to use every tool at my disposal, whether that be social media or press interviews, anything to amplify the voices of those who had been ignored for far too long. And with every speech, every meeting, every petition, I realized that activism isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about being resilient and refusing to accept the world as it is when we know it can be better. So today, on International Women's Day, I want to ask you, what do you want your legacy to be? Because success isn't defined by fame, it's not defined by fortune or a number of likes, but by the number of lives changed. You don't need to be famous to stand for something. You don't need a platform to make a difference. You just have to be brave enough to speak up, even when society tries to silence you. So for the women in this room, and to any of the young girls watching, know this. Reinvention isn't just possible, it's necessary. Whether you're at the beginning of your journey, in the middle of a shift, or questioning whether you'll ever be able to shake off the labels given to you by society, know this. You can, you will, and when you do, the world will be a much better place for it. So just onto reflections. Next time you find yourself judging another woman, whether that woman is somebody you know, whether that's a person online or in reality TV, just stop and ask yourself, would you judge a man in the exact same way? And I think it says a lot about society and how we define success. From when we're younger up until the day we die. It's not money, but it's how you make others feel that they will remember you by, and how you leave the world better for future generations. Thank you.